Dear children, we are here with the chapter number basic account. Chapter is very important. Those who are the beginners field, especially those who are beginners in this subject accountancy. So let's deal with certain important terms. Important term here it comes is that is business transactions. Let us see what is business transaction about. Transaction basically mean any event or activity which takes place in the business is what we call it as transactions. These transactions can be classified into two categories basically on the basis of nature and the other is on the basis of activity. So on the basis of nature, it can be further be classified into two, financial transactions and non-financial transactions. Similarly, on the basis of activity, it can be classified under the two category that is external transactions and the internal transactions. So children, let us understand what is this financial transactions and non-financial transactions mean. Financial transactions are those transactions which are related to money, where money is involved. Such type of the transactions are called financial transactions. And non-financial transactions are those transactions where money is not involved or where the monetary aspect is not there. Next, here it comes on the basis of activity. On the basis of activity, the transactions can be classified into two. One is external transactions and the second one is internal transactions. External transactions are those which any business organization used to carry with the outsiders. And the internal transactions are those which the business carries with internally within the employees or within the workers or within the people in the organization. So the next term, the term number 2, after this we are going to discuss the term that's what we call account. Account basically if we will see is a kind of a format where we use to record the transactions of similar nature. Means whenever a transaction takes place up in the business, so therefore on the basis of its similarity we use to pick up those transactions on the basis of its similarity. Suppose if I take an example of Ram, if the number of the transactions which I carried out with the Ram throughout, I will be picking up all those transactions and will be putting it in one place using some rules and regulations. That is what we call it as account. Making of accounts is also called as the preparation of ledger accounts that we will be studying further in the coming chapters in class 11th. And generally, if you will see, in accounting, we keep a separate record of each and every individual and the individual aspect related to the business. So children, accounts are generally divided into two sides. The left hand side of the account is called as the debit and the right hand side of the account is called as the credit. Let us see this through a format. So if you will see this format, you can find it here. How does an account look like, and moreover what is the debit and how the credit is written and where to which side. Next, after that, the next accounting term which we are going to discuss is capital. Let us see what is capital. Whenever a business is being started, the prime objective of every business organization is to earn profit. And moreover, as you all know, no business can be started in the absence of any investment or in the absence of any money being invested into the business. So this initial investment which any businessman do into the business is what we call, it is called as the capital. Now this capital can be in any form. It can be in the form of the goods, it can be in the form of an asset, even it can be in the form of the cash. So there, that's what you can see it here. Capital is the initial investment done in the business by the proprietor is called as the capital. And we can see the capital can be in any firm. And now the next here it comes is the capital can be classified
or we can call the capital with the different names. It is also known as owner's equity. We can call the capital as net worth, or the capital can also be called as net assets. Now, the next accounting term after this we are going to discuss is asset. So assets means it's a something very important and the valuable thing for the business. So we can see it here, assets. Whenever we talk about a business or whenever the business commences or when it continues to do with its operations, so there emerges one important term which any commerce student should know. That is what we call it as assets. Let's see what does the term assets basically mean. Assets means something valuable which any business owns, and this is capable of generating further income. If we will say asset is basically it's a something very valuable property to us through which a business can generate further income or through which the business can add on more revenue. So these type of the things can be called as the assets. So therefore, to be called as an asset, any valuables should possess the following characteristics. The number one, it should be valuable, and number two, it should be owned by the business, and number three, here it comes is the resources which any business want to be called as an asset should be measured in terms of money, or it should be capable of being measured in terms of money. This is what we call it as to be the asset. So any valuables, any property or anything, if it possesses these three characteristics, hence we can call this as to be the assets. So hence we can say our some examples of the asset. Here we have picked up the random some examples of the assets. So furniture is an asset for us, because it has got a resale value when you wants to sell it. And if you will talk about the automobiles, if you will talk about computer, it's an asset. And the checks, drafts, bank balance, clothing, and you can say this thing that cash in hand. These are the some examples of assets. So children, you can quote even more examples based upon your understanding relating to that of assets. So now the next here it comes is assets can be classified into the following categories. Basically, the two broad categories into which the assets can be classified is the one is the non-current assets and another one is the current assets. So if we'll take here, the non-current assets can be divided into further more categories. If you remember children, isn't it? We have discussed this already. So, but it is, you can say that as per your syllabus, only that is two classification of the assets is there. That is the fixed assets, tangible assets, intangible assets, and one more, the fictitious assets. It can be classified into more categories, but about that you will be studying in class 12th. And similarly, current assets has got these following items, generally which has been listed here. We will discuss one by one each item later in this very particular chapter. So children, let us first discuss that is what is the term non-current assets stands for. See, the non-current assets basically mean they are those assets which exist in the business for a longer duration, are generally not meant for sale. It is called as the non-current assets. Okay, so let's discuss what does this non-current assets basically mean. It refers to those assets which are held for continued use for the purpose of producing goods or services and which last in the business for a longer duration, generally more than a year, and is not meant for sale. This is what we call it as to be a non-current assets. Non-current assets, if we'll deal about, it has got certain features that you are supposed to remember in order to classify the assets as that of the non-current and that of the current. The number one, it should be there in the business for the continued purpose or for the continued use. And second important thing here it comes is these assets, it helps upon the, or it helps in the earning capacity of the business, and generally these assets, they exist in the business for a longer duration. Next, let's deal with the further classification of the non-current assets. So non-current assets, when we talk about, it can be classified into many categories according to the vertical format of the balance sheet as per the Companies Act 2013. We will see it later. So as per that, if you will see, it can be classified into two. One is the fixed assets. Another one here it comes is the, that is it will can be further be classified into two, that is tangible assets and intangible assets. Children, the further part of the explanation of these assets will be continued in the coming video. So stay tuned to these videos. So therefore, you will be able to get the classes in continuation. So thank you. That's all for today's class.